The Hoosac Tunnel. One of the most popular legends is that of the haunting of the Hoosac Tunnel in North Adams. The digging of this railroad tunnel is a saga of blood, sweat, and tears. Beginning in 1851, and wasn't finished until 1875. During those long 24 years, hundreds of miners, using mostly crude black powder and a pick and shovel, chipped away at the rock of Hoosac Mountain. By the time the tunnel was finished, 200 men had lost their lives in what came to be known as the Bloody Pit. Many died in explosions, fires, and drownings, but one death may not have been accidental. In 1865, the explosive nitroglycerin was introduced to America and used for the very first time in the construction of the Hoosac Tunnel. On the afternoon of March 20th, 1865, explosive expert Ned Berkman, Billy Nash, and Ringo Kelly planted a charge of nitro and ran towards a safety bunker. Berkman and Nash never made it. Kelly had prematurely set off the charge, burying his coworkers alive under tons of rock. Soon after the accident, Kelly disappeared. He was not seen again until March 30th of 1866. His body found 2 miles inside the tunnel in the exact spot where Berkman and Nash had died. Kelly had been strangled to death. Deputy Sheriff Charles F. Gibson estimated that the time of death at between midnight and 3:30 a.m. An investigation was carried out, but with no suspects, the murder was never solved. Some of the workmen, however, came to their own conclusion. They knew that Kelly had been killed by the vengeful spirits of Berkman and Nash. Fearing that the tunnel was cursed, they did not like entering it. Even visitors became uneasy inside the dark, dank cavern with water dripping continuously from the ceiling and streaming down the walls. A month later, on October 17th, 1868, the worst disaster in that tunnel's history occurred. 13 miners died in a gas explosion that blew apart the surface pumping station. Debris filled the central shaft where the miners were working. Glenn Dorhan, a correspondent for the North Adams Transit, reported that a miner named Mallory was lowered by bucket and rope to search for survivors. When brought back to the surface, and almost unconscious from fumes, he gasped, "No hope." Without an operating pumping station, the 538-foot shaft soon filled with water. Bodies of dead miners resurfaced. More than a year later, the remaining bodies were found on a raft the men built to float on the rising waters. They had suffocated from the vapors of the deadly gas. Since all of this, it's been one of the most haunted tunnels around. But be warned, the tunnel is a private railroad property and poking around is trespassing. But for those who risk legal consequences, there is still a danger of passing trains and getting disoriented inside that tunnel in the pitch black. Sometimes it's hard to tell which direction you came from. Provincetown's Black Flash. The year was 1939. The winds of war were blowing in Europe as Nazi tyranny began its spread. German submarines lurked off the Atlantic coast, and the American public feared the growing likelihood of war. It was out of this atmosphere that the Black Flash appeared in Provincetown, Massachusetts. The village was tormented for a few weeks in the fall, scaring children and leading to a puzzle that has still scared people and has them scratching their heads. Who or what was the Black Flash of Provincetown? School children on their way home from class were the first to report the Black Phantom. They claimed the tall figure dressed all in black would appear from nowhere and disappear just as fast. Huge and impossibly fast, it seemed the creature aimed only to frighten, a job that it did exceedingly well at. The adults in the town did not take the accounts very seriously, at least until one of their own saw the ghostly figure. Mary Costas was walking by Town Hall one night in October when a tall figure dressed all in black jumped out of the bushes in front of her. The creature had glowing blue eyes, silver ears, and could jump impossibly high. The frightened Mary ran into the nearby coffee shop for help. A group of men ran out quickly to look for the creature but found nothing. Police who arrived at the scene thought that the whole affair was a big joke, despite Mary being genuinely frightened. After her terrifying encounter, several more townspeople saw the monster. Reports were scattered all over town, as police received call after call from residents on one end of town, claiming that they had seen the beast running through the yard. Another call would simultaneously come in from the opposite end of town. Even police began to believe the monster might be some sort of devil. Townspeople knew the beast by various names: the Provincetown Phantom, the Devil of Doon, and the name by which the apparition is known in history, the Black Flash. The Black Flash made the radio news broadcasts around the world. It was the perfect sort of story for the radio broadcasts of the day, where news programs elbowed room on the dial-along with serials and plump dramas. The story grew more and more with the telling. The monster went from merely jumping out to frighten people to full-on attacking, spewing blue fire as it did so much like the legendary Spring-Heeled Jack. Here it is good to note how much the story has grown from those early reports. It entered into the folklore of the area and became more and more embellished over time. Many details that will be found on many sites have that the monster tormented Provincetown for the entire duration of the war, from 1939 to 1945, and only stopped after children poured a pot of hot water on its head. In reality, the panic really only lasted a few weeks in the fall of 1939. Pukwudgies. A pukwudgie is a 2 or 3 foot tall, troll-like being from the Wampanoag folklore. Pukwudgies' features resemble those of a human, but with enlarged noses, fingers, and ears. Their skin is described as being a smooth gray and at times been known to glow. In Native American lore, Pukwudgies have the following traits and abilities. They can appear and disappear at will. They can transform into a walking porcupine. They can attack people and lure them to their deaths. They are able to use magic, poison arrows, and can create fire at will. Pukwudgies control Taipai-wakas, which are believed to be the souls of Native Americans that have been killed. Native Americans believe that Pukwudgies are best left alone. When you see a Pukwudgie, you are not supposed to mess with them, or they will repay you by playing nasty tricks on you, or following you and causing trouble. They were once friendly to humans, but then turned against them. They are known to kidnap people, push them off cliffs, attack their victims with short knives and spears, and use sand to blind their victims. Dogtown. Settlers began moving to the area in 1693, mainly because the spot's inland locale granted protection from pirates and hostile native people who were understandably annoyed at the uninvited guests. At its peak in 1750 to the 1800s, Dogtown played host to around 100 families. After the War of 1812, most farmers moved away from Dogtown. Fears of coastal attacks were dwindling, and new roads were being opened between Rockport and Gloucester. This is when all the trouble started. As respectable families took off, their abandoned homes began filling with unsavory people looking for a place to now lie low. Those without a family to follow also remained behind, like widows and some independent single women. Rumors began to brew that some of these had stayed in order to practice witchcraft. Strange booming sounds began to be heard from the town, and travelers reported flickering lights and figures surrounding the forests. And what about the name? Originally known as Common Settlement, Dogtown got its name from the large population of feral dogs that were known to inhabit the town. Many of the widows of lost sailors and soldiers kept dogs for protection and companionship. Whether it was the death of their owners or some unexplainable force, these pets became feral and took to wandering over the nearby moors and howling. Some of the residents had particularly menacing reputations. Tammy Younger was known as Queen of the Witches. Tammy lived on Fox Hill by Alewife Brook and was reported to curse teams of oxen transporting fish from the nearby harbor as they made their way through the Dogtown area. Unless, of course, the driver paid her a toll. I suppose that's one way to leverage nasty rumors. The last resident of Dogtown was a freedman named Cornelius Blackneil Finson. Horrifically, he was discovered half dead in a cellar hole during a harsh winter. Barbson was relocated to a poorhouse in 1830, and he died very soon after. Roger Bobson, the founder of Bobson College, commissioned out-of-work stonecutters to carve what were meant to be inspirational inscriptions on 36 boulders in Dogtown during the Great Depression. There are 38 of these baffling and occasionally unsettling inscriptions scattered around the area. Early settlers of the area reported astounding levels of wolf activity. According to the late folklorist Richard Chall, the local Indians stated that their ancestors actually possessed heads like dogs, and that eating a local plant could allow anyone to adopt the same canine features. In March 17, 1984, a Boston resident claimed that he had witnessed a gigantic animal roaming the cliffs near Dogtown. He thought it might be a mountain lion, but local wildlife officials insisted that no mountain lions live on Cape Ann. March 17th was a full moon. On March 21st, a dead deer was found on Crane's Beach. It had been torn apart but not eaten. That same night, near the road to Dogtown, 2 people reported seeing a gray, monstrous, dog-like animal running into the woods. Just when you thought that this place was already maxing out on its creepiness potential, we have a toy cemetery to consider. Sometime in the past few years, old dolls and stuffed animals have begun appearing in a section of Dogtown. Tied-up baby dolls and grim-looking animals feature in the collection. While probably the work of mischievous teenagers, there's always the possibility that a less savory individual or group has begun using Dogtown for their own purposes. Today, Dogtown is a rugged 3,000-acre park where visitors can see the village's abandoned cellar holes and roam the trails and tangled forests surrounding the unfortunate town. The terrain can be treacherous, however, as old homestead foundations have begun to give way underfoot, and many report the area to be disorienting. Dogtown is definitely a must-explore destination for those craving a ghost town adventure. Just be sure to keep your eyes on the horizon. You wouldn't want to linger there after dark. The Bridgewater Triangle. The Bridgewater Triangle refers to an area of about 200 square miles within southeastern Massachusetts in the U.S., claimed to be site of alleged paranormal phenomena, ranging from UFOs to poltergeists. Common to most of this area is a mix of reported phenomenon that includes reports of everything you can think of. Bigfoot sightings. There have been several reports of sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature in the triangle, usually near Hockomock Swamp. Thunderbird sightings. Giant birds or pterodactyl-like flying creatures with a wingspan of 8 to 12 feet are claimed to have been seen around the swamp and neighboring Tuaton, including a report by Norton Police Sergeant Thomas Downey. Animal mutilations. Various incidents of animal mutilations have been reported, particularly in Freetown and Fall River, where local police were called to investigate mutilated animals believed to be the work of a cult. 2 specific incidences in 1998 were reported, one in which a single adult cow was found butchered in the woods, the other which a large group of calves were discovered in a clearing. They were grotesquely mutilated, as if part of a ritual sacrifice. Although some people do attribute animal mutilation to UFO or aliens. And last but not least, Native American curses. According to one tale, the Native Americans had cursed that swamp centuries ago because of poor treatment they received from the colonial settlers. A revered object of the Native American people, a belt, known as a wampum belt, was lost during King Philip's War. Legend says that the area owes its paranormal unrest to the fact that the belt was lost from the native people. I hope you ghouls enjoyed this particularly long urban legend video. I hope it was worth the wait since there wasn't one last week. I tried to make it long. I tried to make it good. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I don't really have a question of the day. I'm just super excited for Halloween season. Like, so excited. I asked my husband, I was like, is it too early to get the Halloween stuff out? And he said yes. So we're going to wait probably another week or so before I start breaking out the Halloween stuff. But yeah. How pumped are you guys? There's a question. How pumped are you ghouls for Halloween? On a scale between 1 being to 10 being, oh my god, can it just be Halloween already? Because I'm at like 9 right now. Let me know in the comments, ghouls. And as always, the last video will be on the top left. The next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.